Yo, what's up, guys? So sorry I haven't posted in a while. I've been kind of busy, but now we're here. So I actually had this chess program finished for a while now. So if you guys watched the last video, you would have seen that I programmed all the legal moves. The only issue was I didn't have checks or checkmates or stalemates programmed, and so I finished this. So I've showed you guys the basics. The setting up board basically creates the board. This print board function. Um, this is just really just focus on this one right here. What I was working on was just a way to flip the board, but for now we're just going to stay from the perspective of the white side. Now we have the move, so this is the input, and then this is the actual move function. Um, and so it basically just again checks if you have castling as well. So just checks for castling, and if not, it just straight up moves it. Again, checks for if you moved a rook or a king, and it would cancel out that specific castling technique, right? So if you moved your kingside rook, you can no longer do a kingside castle. Legal moves is a very long list. It's a few hundred lines. It's very repetitive, though. It's all the same concept. It's basically just saying that if it can move to a blank space, then if there's a blank space, it can move there, and if there's a piece, determine if it's its side or if it's the opponent's piece. And if it's the opponent's piece, you can take it. If it's their piece, they cannot take it. So it's pretty simple. I just had to do this for all the different pieces and paths. And again, this is castling right here. And then finally, this compiles everything into a list of white moves or black moves, and then this returns it depending on which one you're asking for. And then here, this is what I've been working on, all the way down here. Yeah, sorry, this much. Ignore this part. This was when I was smashing my head against my keyboard trying to figure it out. But in reality, it's actually pretty simple. So I just create my letter list. Just for starters, I flip it to make a number list so I can convert more easily. And then what it does is it finds the coordinates of the king. So what it finds is every time someone moves, it checks this. So first of all, it checks for your opponent's legal moves, assuming that you make no moves. It basically just says after your opponent moves, it's gonna say, okay, if you just pass your turn, which you can't do in chess, but if you pass on your turn, then it will check all the legal moves for what your opponent could do, and then it finds the coordinates of your king, and then it checks all the legal moves and basically says, can it take your king? And if it can take your king, if you do nothing, then it can say check. So here it checks for all your possible counter moves, or I guess for all your possible moves. And then down here it checks for all your opponent's possible counter moves. And it basically just checks if in any of these your opponent can take your king, then that move is not allowed. Simple. And if it cannot take your king, then it is allowed. So if you block the piece attacking your king, if you take it, or you move your king. So it funnels all of your possible moves into this new legal moves or new leg moves list, and then it cycles through all these possible legal moves. And then again, it just copies the board and it simulates all these moves, and then checks for your king's coordinates, and then checks your opponent's possible moves. And if they can take you, that move is not allowed. So that checks for moving into check. And then here again, it's just funneling your moves into your official moves. And then it basically checks here. I made a variable at the very top that's called check, and if you are in check, it says check equal to 1. So that really determines the stalemate or checkmate. So if your check is 0, so if you're not in check and your official moves list is 0, meaning you don't have any legal moves, then you are in stalemate, and that'd be a draw. But if your check is equal to 1 and your legal moves equal to 0, then that is a checkmate. And normally I would have it quit the game, but for the showcase, so you guys could see that it was a checkmate, I just had to take away the quit, but normally it would be a quit. And again, so down here it sets up your board, it prints your board, and then this is basically just the loop for the whole game. So it finds your legal moves, it takes your move input, it clears the board, reprints the board, finds the legal moves, it takes your move input, and it clears the board, prints the board. So it's really just a cycle throughout the game until someone wins or you draw. So I could have made some functions for like draw by repetition or draw from insufficient materials, but I don't think it's that important. I could always I could really anytime, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna make a video on that. So if you guys ever want the code for this, or have any questions about how I did something, or are giving suggestions on how I could have done something better, feel free to leave a comment. But for now, that's about it.